All right, so last week we had a call internally and we discussed what we're going to do for an upcoming event at Screenly. And it's going to be a conference, and we wanted to have some kind of cool interactive edge app that kind of goes beyond what you would normally find in these. And we kind of wanted to have a physical hardware component to it that can show some interesting data. And we talked about a lot of things, but one of the things we kind of ended up saying that would be great would be like a indoor sensor, like temperature and air quality monitors, and like show that in real time on the screen at the event. And that'll be a cool event, right? That'll be cool, interesting thing to show on the screen, interesting data, right? And as we start to talk about this, how we best get the data, obviously you can get public data, but obviously we want to have super localized data because, again, this is kind of what we wanted to showcase here. And as we went through that, it made me realize that I had already built one of these sensors in the past. So I built a sensor using ESPHome that I'm using. I built quite a few of them actually to monitor my home air quality. And I've already kind of open sourced the hardware and we're going to publish that to a repository where you can download all the schematics. But long story short is that it's a very, very cheap board. You can build these sensors for probably less than $15, $20 or so. And they're using standardized components, and they're using Home Assistant, ESPHome, which is now part of Home Assistant. And behind the scenes, they're really just using one of these little ESP32s that you can buy. I think you can buy these now for like £5 or $5. So they're super cheap. So that's kind of like the brain for it. And that's what I want to use. So in this live session, or in this vibe coding session, I will try to build a dashboard for an edge app that leverage the data from these data sources. So I already have quite a few of these live, so I'm just going to pull live data, which is cool. But as I was poking around with this before the recording, I realized that ESPHome now supports Prometheus as an output mechanism. And that's really cool because those not familiar with Prometheus is kind of a standard, or has become kind of a standard for observability. So like if you're looking at server metrics or data metrics, Prometheus is kind of like a very common way of using this. So what that means is that we're not going to use the proprietary or not proprietary, the REST API for ESPHome, which is the normal way you would get data from ESPHome. But we have enabled on this particular device, we've enabled the Prometheus endpoint, which is basically 2 lines. You'll find that in the configuration in that we'll link to in the description here. So that's what we're going to use. And if I look here, I'm just going to pull this data in cursor here. I'm just going to pull this endpoint with curl, and you can see here, you can see all the data. So this is live data that we're reading from the sensor data direct. I can pull that right, and you can see new data. Now, here's the kicker though. Like, I don't know how well Cursor will do in parsing this data format. It's not JSON. It's kind of a bit custom here. So let's see how we'll do with that. So the other part is that I will be using a design that we have already for a dashboard. So I'm just going to reuse that existing dashboard. So the board looks like this, as you can see on the photo here on the screen. Very small. It can be done smaller. I have some custom ones that are even smaller. So let's get cracking. So I'm going to hop in here in Cursor. I'm going to this is the playground repository. You can find all this on GitHub. So if I go to Edge Apps here, I'm going to start a new one called indoor sensor dashboard. And then I'm going to do a Screenly. I already got the Screenly CLI installed. You can find that on github.com/screenly-cli/CLI. I've already logged in with the Edge app as well. Sorry, with the CLI as well. So I'm not going to bother with that in this tutorial. So let's just do this. So I'm going to do Screenly Edge app create name equals to indoor sensor dashboard dev. Cool. All right, edge up created. And I can now see that I have these files. All right, cool. So let's just make sure we tell Cursor to use this. I've referenced this image here already, so you can see here. So we have a mock-up that we can use for Cursor. So let's get started. So in the folder, let's create a dashboard for indoor metrics. I want to display humidity, air quality, let me see, and temperature in real time from a Prometheus endpoint. I'm also going to reference the developer documentation. I'm going to go to the developer documentation here. I'm going to reference the edge app documentation so that Cursor can chew on that as well. Use that. And we want a setting for the endpoint querying. We also have a design attached. Let's say use this as dashboard. Cool. And then we're just going to go back with our curl command here. Copy this. That IP will be the value of the setting. All right, let's see what it comes back with. It's chewing on that. Interesting. Okay. Great. So, first, don't need to use a course proxy here, I think. 1. Inspect this, assume these might actually, we probably want to have assume the values might change. Perhaps we should the types historical values, just current, and then sorry, I forgot the 3 here. All right, let's ignore that part. All right, so it wants to inspect the values. Okay, great. Great, it's able to parse it. Perfect. Yes, this looks reasonable. Let's see what it's doing here. Okay, so it's interesting. Okay, cool. It's gonna load it over JavaScript. Okay, cool. So interesting. So now it's asking for IP. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, this is fine for our first test run, I guess. I probably want to have them slightly more dynamic going forward, but let's try that. Let's try this and hmm. Hmm. Let's see if I can make it, if it can come up with some good. That's such a step in the wrong direction. So now we actually lost a type of metric. So let's revert this back. That's fine. Let's hardcode them for now. All right, let's move forward with implementation. I'm kind of happy with this. It's not perfect, but it's a good starting point. All right, let's see what it can do with our actual dashboard then. So we expect it to pull that and display it in real time. And we can see that you need to provide, this is default, so we can clean this up while it's working. And this is not valid. JSON for its worth should miss that because you can't have a colon inside a string. So let's just fix that while it's working. Same goes here, right? Yeah, and here. All right, so whilst it's working there, I've sorted that out. Good stuff. So it's built a dashboard here. So it's using all settings, blah, blah. That's cool. I mean, I'm just gonna trust you on this. So let's see what happens if I do. Oops. The Edge app run, because you can run this with the Edge app emulator locally, so you don't have to deploy it to a device. So let's just see what happens. Oh, that's right. So I need to generate the mock data first. So let's do that. And then we do this. Ooh, he didn't read it. Okay, if we have a dashboard, but the values are not accurate because, well, it didn't pull it. So let's see what happens. So we need to add some debugging. Let's see if I inspect this. All right, let's just see what console log says. I'll rerun this. Interesting, nothing here. Connection refused. Oh, it's the old one. Oh, that's why. Let's see what it's doing. Oops. All right, let's add some debug logging here, and then let's fire this up again, and let's try it again. All right, it now has some debug logging. So if I do, oops, inspect, and do a console here, Interesting. Okay, so there, this debug. So it's debug logging object. Okay, so this is the problem. Oops. Let's back into cursor and see what it says. So it's not able to pull the metrics. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we so we got scrolling YAML. Of course, we need to actually set. Okay, let's do this. Let's start by adding error handling for if the from point is set. Okay, that's obvious, right? So we haven't actually set the Prometheus endpoint, so that's why it's acting up. So that should be covered in our application logic, really, because otherwise that's just silly. You couldn't actually deploy this in the. You can run it with the emulator, but actually this would choke if you would try to deploy it to a real screen. But let's just add some of this more just for good measures. All right, good. All right, cool. Let's go into mock data and let's just set our, let's see, Prometheus endpoint to, what did we have? That's the value we want, right? So let's just copy this. Oops. All right. Boom. Well, that was quick and easy. Now we have an Edge app displaying this data. Does that actually make sense though? Let's see if I curl this. Oops. Is that what we're expecting? So the VEVOC. Yeah, it's 0. So all right, so we have one more data point here. So let's add that in as well. And then whilst we're doing that, I'm gonna go to the screen of the playground, and I'm gonna pull in our list of documentation for support resolutions to make sure that's actually covered as well. I'm just gonna clean up the mock data file and rebuild that. We probably want to change. I don't like how we do. Okay, now I reverted that, so I don't like that. That's great. By having a unquoted text. And let's. Yeah. Okay. So now it's quoting that. That's perfect. Someone accept that. Oh, someone comes through. Yeah. So now it will regenerate that with quoted strings. And what I really don't like this though, because that's just kind of like, this is standardized endpoint. So all we really need is the IP here. So now it's going to fix that by quoting all of them. That's cool. Great. Factor that to be just IP. And can be. But then again, if it's on a different custom port, actually, that's not terrible because you might have a custom port. So actually, let's ignore that. Okay, so let's go back here and generate mock data. I'm going to go back here and let's quiet the editor a bit. Okay, looks like we have some indentation errors here. That's fine. So let's say we want this endpoint here, right? So let's sort of copy and paste this again. A run. Cool. Right. Data. So we forgot to actually implement it in the front end. This airing cabinet is where there's a server sitting there. That's why it's so hot right now. And oh, there we go. Metric card. Okay. And that should really be all we need. And let's reload this page. Boom. There we go. So now every time this page reloads, we'll read these values in real time. So that's really it. Like, we've built now a dashboard that automatically displays data from a Prometheus endpoint. So whilst I'm using indoor sensors here, in reality, we could use anything that spits out a Prometheus endpoint. That could be a server, like Prometheus node exporter, for instance, or anything else, like anything that can speak Prometheus. So it's super cool. Like, it took us a very short amount of time, less than half an hour, to build this from scratch. So there you have it. If you want to deploy this now to a real screen, we can do this. All we need to do is to run deploy, and that would push our Edge app into the Screenly backend. You can then schedule that to any screen you want. And obviously, because this dashboard is pulling data from a device on the local network, the device needs to sit on the same network. But as long as that's true, you can deploy it into any number of screen devices or Screenly devices, or even Screenly Anywhere devices, or Screenly for Android. All of these can speak to this. Actually, Screenly, it needs to be physicalized, Screenly Player, because it's on the local network. Screenly for Android and Screenly Anywhere would not work in this particular use case, because that rendered server side rather than locally on the device. So you need a Screenly Player or a Screenly Player Max for this to work. But as long as these devices are on the local network, you should be good to go. So there you have it. That's how we can create a vibe coding session to generate an indoor sensor dashboard. So thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.